friends, welcome back to the Craft Castle. My name is Ashley and I have owned a laser machine for over 4 years. Over the past 4 years of owning my laser, I have compiled a list of really important tips and tricks that you need to know in order for you to have successful laser cut projects. I'm excited to share these tips and tricks with you because the last thing I want is for you to be a frustrated crafter. So what we're gonna do today is I'm gonna take 4 years of my crafting laser knowledge and I'm gonna share them with you so you can get back to having fun while crafting. Let's go into hack number 1. The very first hack is to pick yourself up a very big roll of masking tape. This and all the other supplies I talk about will be linked in the description of this video. What you want to do is mask all of your material. Now, when you are buying acrylic should have masking tape on it. Some acrylics have a plastic masking. You're gonna wanna take that off and remask it with the paper masking. Now, inside my X tool, I have a piece of unmasked wood. I also have a piece of masked wood because I'm going to show you the very important difference between masked and unmasked products. However, before I get into the importance of why we should be masking all of our material, the next thing I'm going to do is skip over into hack number 2 of this series. Now, this doesn't matter if you are using the honeycomb tray or even the slats while using your X tool. What you want to do is pin your materials down. The reason for this is because if your piece of wood has a little bit of movement, which mine does, it doesn't lay flat on my honeycomb tray. What will happen is you will get an uneven cut and engrave because you have movement in your material. Now, the other benefit of pinning down your material is if you are trying to create a jig to create a whole bunch of smaller objects like dog tags or pencils, you want to hold down your material for your jig so your jig doesn't move around while you switch out your smaller materials. When you get the honeycomb tray with X tool, it comes with these really cool magnetic clips that you would clip into your honeycomb tray. All you need to do is slide them into the holes, and this right here holds your material down. Now with my material down, there is no wiggling of my material. And also it is pinned down so my material won't wiggle around. So if this was going to be used as a jig, we wouldn't have any issues with the jig moving around. With my X tool turned on, we are going to move over into hack number 3. I promise I will show you the key difference between the masked and unmasked material towards the end of this video. For hack number 3, what you always want to do is come over here to this button right here. This is called the autofocus feature. What you want to do is click on this little button and you are going to get this rectangle. You want to put this rectangle on your material that you're going to be cutting and engraving. The reason why this is so important is that it is accurately going to measure the distance between your laser head and your material. When I did that, you can see that my screen adjusted back a little bit. That's because the machine uses its mirrors and camera to determine the thickness of the material that I'm going to be using. This is going to be a lot more accurate than trying to figure out with calipers what's the difference between the thickness of your material and also the distance between your material and laser head. Now for hack number 4. Let's say that this material was an unknown material and I had no idea what cut settings I should be using. X tool has this really cool feature called the test grid feature. How to access the test grid feature is the very first thing you want to do is come over here into shapes and you want to insert a shape. It doesn't matter which one you do, circle or rectangle. But you just want to click on one of the shapes and just draw a shape onto your working area. Now what you want to do is, let's say you want to cut this out. So we are going to take that rectangle and you're going to come over here to processing type and we are going to change this over to cut. If you were doing an engrave, you would want to change this to engrave. Now what you want to do is come down here to these 4 little weird boxes right here and click on that. And then what you want to do is do the material test array. Now you can adjust your settings if you wanted to. I generally never use this. I just press OK. At At this point, what you want to do is resize this to fit onto your new unknown material that you're going to be cutting. So I'm just going to make this smaller just so we don't waste material. And I'm going to put it over here in this little bottom leg. Now, the one thing that I would like to note here is there are actually two important reasons of why we should be doing our own test grids. The first reasoning for it is that you can do this on any material that you have at your crafting area. So it could be wood, acrylic, paper, or even fabric. Sometimes searching the internet for cut settings takes a really long time, and this right here doesn't take a whole lot of time. Also, on that note, every single tutorial that I do, I always list my cut settings or even my engraved settings. However, I strongly encourage that you should always do your own test grid. The reason for that is every single machine is different. How clean or dirty your machine will affect the way that your machine cuts. Also, the age of your machine. If your machine is brand new, it probably doesn't need as high as settings as somebody else's machine that has been used for years. So it's always really good and suggested that you do these cut test grids for your material on your machine. So when we have the test grid placed, you can go over here and press process and then press start. Now with my material put in and also pinned down, I am going to cut out the test grid. Now with the test grid done, all you want to do is open up your laser bed and you want to slide out your material grid. You can see that I had some really good settings down here and not so good settings up here. So for me, I have determined that my speed 10 and power 33 is probably going to be perfect for this material that I'm using. For this test grid, you're not just able to do the cutting for the test grid, you can also do this for your engraving and score settings if you were curious on what you should be doing for your material. Just to show you how easy it is to set up another type of test grid, all you would need to do is do the same steps that we did before. Insert any shape, doesn't matter the size or shape. Let's say you wanted to do an engrave, you would just change your processing type over to engrave. Then you would do the material test array and press OK. And again, all you need to do is just make this smaller and put this onto the material that you're trying to figure out the perfect settings for. Now, because I didn't change my material over from earlier, I do not have to press that little autofocus feature. If you did change your material, you always want to make sure and press this autofocus button and put it onto your material. And then press start. Once you're satisfied with the placement of your test grid, doing the same steps as we did before, you just want to press process. And just like before, you just want to press the magic button. Now that that's done, all we need to do is open the lid and do the same thing that we've done before and check the setting. Now this right here isn't necessarily a hack, but definitely a safety tip. Whenever you're cutting or engraving new material, you always want to make sure and mind your machine, because you can tell that some of these engraved settings were a little bit too deep. Now this could have caught on fire and caused a huge issue inside my craft room. I did make sure that I didn't start a fire, but had that happen, all you need to do is press the emergency shut-off button right here at the back of your X tool. So the settings that I find that are perfect for the material that I'm using is going to be the middle right rectangle on my test grid. Remember, your test grid and my test grid might be different. That's why I always want you to do these for your machine. Now that we've covered why it's so important to do your own test grids, I'm going to show you what the big difference is between masked and unmasked wood. So to show you the difference between masked and unmasked materials, I just used a border that's found in the X Tool design program. I am going to engrave this border with the same good settings that I've determined that work well for my X Tool. And I am also going to use the same cut settings that I've determined work well for my X Tool. Now that I have my settings correctly, I am just going to place this onto my material just so I can show you an apples to comparison as to why masking is so important on our materials. I'm going to put this over here copy and paste, and I'm going to put the same thing in the same size over on the unmasked wood. Now, because I've not changed my material, I don't have to press the autofocus feature. Now all I need to do is press process and then press start. And doing the same thing that we've done for every other cut, all you want to do is press the magic button. Now for the big unveiling. We're going to open up our lid, and I'm going to take my clamps out of the unmasked wood. Now you will see on the unmasked wood that there is some charring around your engraving. This right here doesn't look cute at all. Now I do have to note, you could take away the charring. It won't take it all away, but it does do a fairly decent job cleaning it up. One of which is taking some sandpaper and sanding off the top layer of where all this soot is. Or I've also seen people use a magic eraser to clean up any charring. I don't love either method because I don't want to actually do more work than I have to. So when it comes to the other one that we had, you can see right here that I have just the same amount of soot as this one right here. The only difference is I'm going to take a plastic razor blade and I'm going to scrape off my masking tape. Now with the masking tape removed, you can see that there's no charring left on my engraving, which is a vast difference between the two. So the benefit of using masking tape is it didn't take me very long to remove the masking tape. And I'm left with a beautiful product versus something like this. I'm gonna have to put a little bit of elbow grease in to clean this up, making it a longer process than it really needs to be. Now, technically, this is gonna be your fifth and last final hack. However, I have a bonus hack coming up real quick. But for your fifth hack, what you need to do is pick up a pair of calipers. You don't need the expensive kind. The $4, $3 ones that you can find linked in the description of this video are perfect. They work just fine. Calipers are super important when you want to start doing really cool things like slotted signs or cutouts like this, where it is just stuck into a wooden base or acrylic base. The great thing about calipers is that you never waste material and your bases are going to turn out so amazing. You're going to be able to flip them upside down and they're not going to fall out. That's because I use calipers. Now, cutouts like that aren't very popular. What's super popular are slotted arched signs. Doing the same thing with your calipers, you can create slotted arch signs that stand up on its own and aren't gonna fall out. It's because I use the calipers. Now, there are files that you can purchase or even download for free that look like a ruler, but technically what they're called is a slotted sign holder. I've downloaded some and I actually don't like using that because you have to waste material and I'm not for wasting. What I always suggest doing when we do cutouts like this is that you cut out your sign first. Then you take your calipers and then you measure your slot that you are going to be putting into your base. When you have that figured out, then what you want to do is resize the little square that's in your base and then cut your base out. This is my tried and true method. I do have videos on how to make slotted signs. If you want to learn how to make your own slotted sign with perfection the very first time, you're gonna wanna go look at my library. The last bonus hack that I have for you, which I find to actually be very important, is go ahead and download a free design program called Inkscape. Inkscape works a lot like CorelDRAW, only it's 100% free. I have been using this program for many years and absolutely love it. I also build all of my SVG files using Inkscape. Great part is it is free. Now, I totally understand learning another design program is often really frustrating, but what you can do is head over to my channel where I have a lot of Inkscape tutorials for you on how to make SVG files or any type of file for laser or even your Cricut. I give you so many really good tutorials on my channel. I sure hope you found all of my tips and tricks while using a laser very helpful. Now, I know that I definitely don't know everything there is to know about owning a laser. If you are an experienced laser owner, is there anything that I've missed that you think is a very important hack that we need to be using as laser crafters? Let's build a community of non-frustrated laser crafters and share our tips and tricks in the comments of this video. All right, y'all, I sure hope I was able to help you become a non-frustrated laser crafter, and I'll see you on the next one.